Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Central Virginia fishing report with Ethan Martin at TaleTellers Fly Shop. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing great today.
Well, that's good. As always, I'm just trying to stay out of trouble, and we were talking before we started recording, and you're kind of in this limbo time, which is made even worse because you guys got a ton of rain last week.
Yeah, the rain we got, it's basically 2 days of just downpour. So for the guys that were looking for smallmouth, you had to know where they were or be fishing conventional because the James blew out like crazy. But a lot of guys went out on the smaller streams just because they finally got a decent shot of water, and it's cold. I mean, the evenings here have been pretty chilly, especially towards the mountains. So it was actually a pretty decent weekend for the people that went up into the brook trout streams. I know they had water and still catching fish on a lot of terrestrials, that sort of stuff. So it's definitely a limbo, but it's still fishing.
Yeah, and so you are cooling off, although I know you're going to kind of move back up into kind of the low 80s later in the week, and then I think about a week out, it's looking like you're going to have 30 to 40% chance of rain, which who knows what that means in Central Virginia. But we were talking on the smallmouth front, you're still seeing cicadas. You haven't gotten really cold yet. So what should people expect when they can get back out again?
I'd still throw poppers if it's me until we get a good hard frost or you literally don't hear them. But even then, I'd probably still try some poppers because this is really the time of the year when the smallmouth are keying in on them. Like I was out last week and we saw a couple of cicadas fall. Just you're floating down the river and then all of a sudden you see the wings flapping and part of you is kind of like, what the heck is that at first? And then you realize, it's just a big old cicada. Didn't see any fish eat them, and then I was talking to another buddy of mine who was out before the rain and had the same experience. So, they're definitely gonna key into that, and they're not gonna forget over one night. So, I'd start with poppers, cicada patterns, or just chartreuse, sneaky pete's, or any of those styles of patterns, and then switch to subsurface stuff if you're not getting anything eating, because it's definitely everything is going to start trending that way. But for now, just get as much as you can out of those poppers because we'll be at them for another 6 or 7 months until we'll be chucking them again. So that's my theory anyway.
Yeah, and then on the trout stream, that's in transition too, right? Because the terrestrial bite's going to start to go away, particularly the higher up you're fishing. And you start moving, it's kind of funny, right? You get closer to Halloween and orange is always good, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing is people have been coming into the shop and asking about hatches and that sort of stuff towards fall. And of course, you can always find hatch charts for different brook trout streams, but the way that I still pretty much all year long is just float around on your colors and then sizes. I don't follow a hatch per se as I'm out. I'll just keep throwing these terrestrials and things. And then again, I think I've said it the last one maybe, but the greeny weenie bite is still rolling pretty strong. So I had one of my local tires drop off another 6 dozen. So that should keep us up for another week or two. And then that'll slowly start to kind of fade out too. And honestly, I have no idea why. I mean, I know those little greeny weenies are everywhere, but I think you were in the shop with me when was it you on the past weekend? There was a yellow jacket that was on the shop window that had a greeny weenie, like he was eating it on the shop window. So that was kind of, the green inchworm, I'm calling it the fly name now. But so they're definitely around. It's easy prey for fish, easy prey for everything else. And it's very clearly visible in the water. And I think that's another additional benefit. But main thing I've seen with people the past weekend is they've, when the water was rolling as it was, they go and they are just throwing a dry fly. And our smaller streams, I mean, they were filled. They had pretty good flows in them. And so I know a couple guys that went out that were like shocked because they've never seen the flows that high. So they only caught like one fish. So it's just one of the things when we get those downpours, like a 2-day downpour like we had, you've got to be fishing something that gets down a little bit more than a dry fly sometimes. And you got to be willing to make that switch. If you just try and peg yourself in one hole, then it'll succeed sometimes, but not 24/7. So If you do go up there, don't just take only a dry fly box. If it's me, I'd have a little mixture of everything. Not like huge streamers, because obviously these aren't huge trout, but small like jig style buggers, that sort of stuff. I would make sure you have some of that with you when we do get those high flows, which, everything's kind of trending back to normal now. So you don't got to worry about that probably this weekend. Unless, like I said, 30% chance rain, who knows what that means here.
Yeah. The other thing too, when the water's ripping like that, if you're not throwing streamers and you're nymphing, you also might want to ditch the indicator, because that's not going to help you out a whole lot either.
So it's just one of those things, you just got to keep putting stuff in and keep trying stuff, until you can get something pegged down. And if all you've ever done is brook trout fishing with a dry fly, then you're missing out, in reality. Like, some people might slap me for saying that, but there's a lot of ways to catch them, and I catch them a lot on a dry dropper. I know for some people that's just sacrilege, how could you fish a nymph to a brook trout? But the reality is that it is very effective, and that I do like catching fish. So if I'm not building displays, I want to go and catch some fish. So I'm not always going to be able to do that with a size 14 parachute Adams,
Yeah, there you go. And, we've got a question for you, and interesting, because it's a good kind of transition question, because it's a musky question. And it's from Jackie in Alta Vista. And Jackie's sent us questions before. And Jackie wanted to know if there's any time of the year where muskie are more likely to feed than any other time.
When it comes to the feeding, I think I mentioned back in the spring, honestly, I caught 3 muskie on accident this year, just post-spawn, because the males are so aggressive then. But, for me, the way that I fish for them, typically through the fall, we start throwing big stuff, because, that's a lot of them are just eating big stuff. So, and when I say that, I mean like 14 to 16 inch flies, sometimes smaller when I get tired. But, so, when it comes to are they feeding more in Virginia, it's a little weird, because whereas like up north in some of those places where, everything freezes over, they still are eating, obviously, but their body temperature gets closer to actually freezing. Here, since everything stays pretty moderate, muskies are going to be feeding 24/7. They have to eat, might be once every 3 days. But for me, I pretty much just hope for the best in terms of like when are they most active. Typically, the pre-spawn and your post-spawn, like pre-spawn being into like April before then. That's when a lot of guys are going there looking for like the giant females, and it's one of those things that's just they're bulking up before the spawn. And then, like I said, the post spawn this year, you can catch them by accident just because they're so territorial and mad at the world, which isn't necessarily a feeding response. It's more of just a trigger response of there's something in their territory and they want to kill it or get it out of their territory. So, I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, because in reality, if the question is when's the best chance to catch one because they are feeding the most, for me, I like catching them post-spawn just because they're a little bit easier. They're still usually towards like the holes or, but because summertime don't really fish for them too much. But everybody knows they're on the creek mouth, but I just don't like the thought of potentially killing one. I guess the jury's still out on that some, but, and then I like smallmouth. So that's a very waffly answer, but that's mainly because they always are somewhat eating, but it's just like every 3 to 4 days, because the meals that they're eating are typically larger fish that can hold them for a little while. That's all I know.
Yeah, well, there you go. And, folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us or send them to us on our Facebook or on our Instagram page. And if we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag. And we enter a drawing for something cool from the shop at the end of the season. And Ethan, before I let you go, why don't you let folks know, current, almost soon to be old location and hours and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So right now the shop is on Commerce Street in downtown Lynchburg, Virginia. And we're just moving up one block up to Main Street. That'll be November 1st will be our first day up there. So that's a that's what I've been spending lots of time during the past since July. But if you can't make it to the shop, then you can always find pretty much all of our inventory online at TaleTellersGA.com. And that's one of those things. Once we're in the new shop, then our online store is going to get a pretty good overall as well. So look for that to increase in terms of the user friendliness. But yeah, that's where you can find us. And then again, Instagram or email, all that stuff. So it's great to me. So lots of ways to get in contact.
Well, there you go. And you know, folks, you owe it to yourself. You got a lot of choices. You can catch the tail end of smallmouth season, or you can catch the front end of trout season. You owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Ethan.
Tight lines.